if I look at this particular question, it is given that there are 25 rooms in a hotel. Each room can accommodate at the most 3 people. That means a room, one person can stay, or 2, or basically 3 over here. For each room, the single occupancy charge is rupee 2000 per day. The double occupancy charge is rupee 3000 per day, and the triple occupancy charge basically happens to be 3500 per day. Then they are saying, if there are 55 people staying in the hotel today, what is the maximum possible revenue from the room occupancy charge today? Now understand, the highest, let's say, revenue one get basically is from, one can say, the triple occupancy charge, which is 3500 per day. So if I look at, suppose, a layman approach in this particular context, one can say all rooms are, let's say, triple occupancy. In that particular case, the revenue earned could be 25 into 3500. And this basically will give you, one can say, 75,000 plus 12,500, giving you 87,500. Now, understand, in this particular context, the total number of people staying will be nothing but 25 into 3, giving you 75. But the number of people staying in the hotel happens to be 55. So definitely the answer over here cannot be more than 87500. Even it can't be option number 3. It can't be option number, let's say, 5 for that particular matter. Now, definitely if you look at, the number of people are 25. The rooms are 25 in this particular case. Definitely if I look at the average over here, comes out to be more than 2. Now understand, if someone asks you about what do you think is the, let's say, per person charge in case of double occupancy, it come out to be 5500 per day. And if I look at the room which contains 3 people, the per person charge happens to be nothing but 3500 divided by 3, and that number basically comes out to be less than 1200. It definitely means that we should try to, let's say, look for, one can say, as many double occupancy rooms as possible. But keeping in mind 25 rooms and let's say 55 people are there, some room definitely has to be triple occupancy as well. So we want to maximize this, and we want to minimize this particular part, keeping in mind that the average basically is going to be more than 2 person per room over here. Now, if I look at a simple method without, let's say, elaborating over here, I can say, if all, let's say, 25 rooms are double occupancy, in that particular case, revenue comes out to be 75,000. But the number of people in that particular case become nothing but 50. 25 per room is going to be 2 people. So 25 into 2 will become equals to, one can say, 50%. I need, let's say, 5 more person. Now 5 more person in a room, I can accommodate 1 more person. That means you need to have, one can say, 5 rooms which are going to be triple occupancy. And understand, in this particular case, for every extra person, one need to pay extra 500. So for this 5 extra people, I need to pay another 5 into 500, giving you additional 2500. And this will lead to a 77,500. So one can choose to mark option number 2 as the required answer for this question. This was a smart cut to solve this particular question, but again, for the people who are confused why we have taken this scenario, I will go with the lengthier approach, or one can say a conventional approach over here. So I will, let's say, make 2 equations first of all. If I suppose S represent the number of rooms which are single occupancy, D represent the number of rooms which are double occupancy, and T represent the number of rooms which are triple occupancy. In that particular case, total number of rooms are 25. So I should say S plus D plus T is 25. At the same time, understand, if I say we have D number of rooms which are double occupancy, the number of people staying over there must be equals to 2D. If I have T number of room where, let's say, triple occupancy are there, the number of people staying over there must be nothing but 3T. So again, if I use the logic of Venn diagram over here, I should say S, the number of person, S plus 2D plus 3T are the number of people staying in those 25 rooms, and that must be equals to 55. So what is going to happen over here is that we can, let's say, write down, let's say, one variable in terms of other. So maybe I can represent S in terms of T, also D in terms of T as well. So for example, suppose if I double the first equation, so one will get 2S plus 2D plus 2T is 50. This part is S plus 2D plus 3t is equals to 55. And then if I subtract, I am going to get minus s plus t is equals to 5, and that basically means s will be equals to a t minus 5. So the number of, let's say, single occupancy room must be, let's say, 5 less than the triple occupancy room. S is equals to t minus 5. Likewise, if I, let's say, put s in terms of t minus 5, we can easily find out d also in terms of, let's say, t over here. So let's put d. So s is t minus 5 plus d plus t is equals to a 25 as per the first equation. So from this one will get, this is going to be d will be equals to a 30 minus 2t. So number of double occupancy room must be equals to 30 minus 2t over here. And now clearly we have got s in terms of t, we have got d in terms of t, and then understand the objective is to maximize your revenue. How will I find out the revenue? So understand revenue over here will be nothing but we have s number of single occupancy room, and the charge for those kind of room basically happens to be 2000. So it must be equals to a 2000 times of s. Then we have d number of double occupancy rooms. So that will be 3000 times of d. And finally, suppose if I, this will be 3500 times of, let's say, t over here. Now suppose if I take maybe 1000 common, so I could have taken 1000 common over here, and this part would have become, or maybe I could have taken 500 common. This part will become 4s plus a 60 plus a 70. And I will, let's say, try to put s in terms of t, d in terms of t to get a proper idea. So this part will become 500 times of the term 4s will become 4t minus 20. The term 6d will become equals to 180 minus 12t plus a 70. And this thing become equals to 500 times of, if you look at over here, this particular portion comes out to be 180 minus 20 is equals to 160. And then this is going to become a minus, this is 11t minus 12t giving you a minus t. So understand we want to maximize this particular equation, and if I look at over here, if I want to maximize this, then this t has to be minimum. So my objective is to find out the max value of the revenue, the value of t, the number of room with the triple occupancy charge must be as low as possible. Now if you look at over here, what can you say? The value of t need to be minimum 5 such that s doesn't become negative. At the same time, the highest value of t need to be 15. So we have got this scenario that the value of t need to be minimum 5 and the max value of t need to be 15, and we want to minimize the value of, let's say, t such that revenue become maximum. So if someone, let's say, put t to be equals to, one can say, a 5 over here, so you get 500 times of 160 minus 5 will become a 155, and this thing if someone simplify will come out to be 77500. Hence option number 2 is the required answer for this question. The next sum happens to be a straightforward one, and it goes like this. The market value of beams made of a rare metal has a unique property. The market value of any beam is proportional to the square of the length. So understand what they are saying is market value is proportional to the square of the length of the beam. Then they are saying that due to an accident, one such beam got broken into two pieces having length in the ratio of 4:9. Considering each broken piece is a separate beam, how much gain or loss with respect to the market value of the original beam before accident is incurred? So let's do one thing over here. We can find out the two pieces. Let's say if I write down the small piece and the larger piece. If I talk about the length, they are in the ratio of 4:9. What does that mean? For example, if I take the smaller, let's say, portion to be of length 4 meter, then the larger one basically would be of length, one can say, 9 meter. So what can you say about the original beam or original, let's say, portion? So 4 plus 9 will become equals to 13. So we basically have the ratio of the length, or I can take the pure numbers basic, because 4, 9 and let's say 13 over here. From this particular part, since we know market value is proportional to the square of the length of the beam, so what can you say about the market value? If the length is going to be nothing but 4, so the market value must be, one can say, equal to a 16, 4 square. For the larger part, 9 square becomes 81, and for original part, 13 square become equal to 169. Understand, we could have taken k as a variable because you might have told market value to be equals to a constant time length square. If I want that, you can say this is going to be k times 4 square, k times 9 square, k times 13 square, and this also we can take as the market value. Those of you who might have an objection with without a variable over here. Now understand, if I look at the two broken pieces together, their market value comes out to be nothing but 16 plus 81 giving 97. So 97k is the market value of the two pieces put together. But how about if I look at the original, that has a worth of, one can say, 169. So do we have a profit or loss? And the answer is definitely going to be a loss over here. And that basically means option number 5 and option number 1 is going to be ruled out at the moment. How much is my loss? You can say something which was 169 is now, let's say, having a worth of 97. That means a loss of 72 on something which costed you a 169k in 200. This part, if you look at 10% of this number would mean a 16.9. So if I look at suppose 40%, because 16.9 into 4 will give you 67.6, and 50% definitely is going to be equals to, one can say, 84.5. So clearly, in this particular case, the loss has to be more than 40% but less than 50%, and one can say it has to be slightly, one can say, more than 40%. If I look at the option 3 and 4 can be ruled out, and one should choose to mark option number 2 over here. So it's a problem which I feel most of you should be able to do it in the exam condition easily. If I look at the next question, Ramesh bought a mobile from local store. He paid 1/6 of the price via UPI, 1/3 of the price via cash, and he agreed to pay the balance amount a year later. While paying back the balance amount, Ramesh paid 10% interest on the balance amount. If the interest paid was rupees 6,000, what was the original price of the mobile over here? Now understand what you can do. You can do multiple things in this particular case, because they have given the price being 1/6 and let's say 1/3. You can take the initial price, original price of the mobile to be some number, one can say, let's say 6x for that matter. So how much, let's say, payment out of 6x was made via UPI? It must be 1/6 of 6x giving you x. So one can say paid by UPI. Then how much was paid by cash? And one can say 1/3 of the number 6x giving you nothing but the number 2x. So in a way, half of the amount has been paid with the help of UPI and cash mode. So how much is remaining? So if I look at the balance amount, that will be equals to nothing but 3x. And on this 3x, there was an interest of 10%. So after 1 year, if I look at the rate, basically was 10%. So the interest for 1 year will be nothing but 10% of the number 3x, giving you 0.3x. And in the problem, it is given that this 0.3x was given to you as the number 6,000. So if I know 0.3x is equals to 6,000, so I can say if I multiply by 10, 3x must be equal to 60,000. And the task was to find out the initial value of the mobile phone, which is equal to 6x. And that one can say must be equals to 1,20,000. So again, if you look at a very, very straightforward problem, even if people, let's say, go in a conventional manner, they won't take too much of time, and you should mark option number 2 as the answer for this simple question. In the next sum, it's given that Adu and Amu have bought 2 pieces of land on Moon from an e-store. Both the pieces of the land have the same perimeter, same circumference, same boundary. But Adu's piece of land is in the shape of a square, while Amu's piece of land happens to be in the shape of a circle. And the objective over here is to find out the ratio of the area of Adu piece of land to Amu's piece of land. So understand, main thing was perimeter was same. So if I just write down the two name Adu and Amu, the land shape for Adu basically happens to be a square, the shape of the land they have, and for Amu it happens to be, one can say, a circle. And as per the statement, if I look at the equating part, both the pieces of land have the same perimeter. This was the important part where we can relate, let's say, the dimension of the square with the dimension of the circles. So if I look at what is given here, they have given perimeter of square will be equal to the perimeter of, one can say, circumference of the circle. In this particular case, we have a square and let's say we have a circle, and both have the same perimeter. Suppose if I take, because finally we have to find out the ratio, we can take whatever value we are comfortable with. For example, if I take, suppose the side of the square is 1, in that particular case the required perimeter of the square will become equals to 4. And what about the circumference of a circle? The formula is 2 pi r. So 2 pi r is what I want to evaluate here. If you see, if you do the calculation, the value of r will be equals to 4 by 2 pi, or simply one can say a 2 over pi. So we have got the value of r in terms of, let's say, pi now, 2 by pi. And finally, we are supposed to find out the ratio. So look at what they have told you. Find out the ratio of the area of Adu's piece of land to that of Amu's piece of land. So ultimately, we have to find out the ratio of the area of the square to the area of the circle. So area of square is to area of circle is what I wish to calculate. Now for the area of the square, the formula is side square. We have taken the side as 1, so 1 square is 2. What is the formula for the area of a circle? Pi times of r square. So pi times of, the value of r is 2 by pi, so the term r square basically will become equals to 4 by pi square. One of the pi term basically will get cancelled out. This thing will become 1 is to 4 by pi. If I want a simplified version of this, let's multiply by pi on both sides. So the required ratio of the area for Adu and Amu happens to be nothing but pi is to 4. Hence option number 2 is the answer for again this simple question over here. In the next sum, it is given that ABCD is a rectangle where the coordinate of the point C and D are known to you as -2, 0 and let's say 2, 0. They have also given to you the area of the rectangle happens to be equals to a 24. Which of the following is a possible equation representing the line AB? Understand, if I draw a rough figure in this particular case, the point C and D, C happens to be at -2, 0 and the point D happens to be at 2, 0. So if I look at the length of CD, the length of CD will become nothing but, one can say, to be equals to 4. So we got, in a way, if you look at, we have got the dimension of, let's say, one of the rectangle. Length is known to us. For example, if I take this as something like this, let's say, for example, if I say A, B, C and D, then this has a, let's say, length or whatever you can say, breadth to be equals to 4 for that matter. Now this is 4, that means the length of AB also is going to be equals to 4. Now understand the area of rectangle. The area of rectangle is given to you as 24. So if I know one dimension, let's say, is equals to 4, the other dimension has to be equal to 6, because length into breadth is the required area. So one can say if this is 4, then this part has to be equal to 6. because length into breadth will represent the required area. So this is also known to us at this particular moment. Now understand, what can I say about the line AB? Can I say line AB need to be parallel to CD? So both are going to have the same slope. Now if I suppose look at the equation of the line CD, this has the equation of, one can say, y to be equals to 0, because the point C and D happens to be both on the x-axis. So the equation of line CD happens to be nothing but equation of x-axis, or one can say y equal to 0. And since the distance between AB and CD line has to be nothing but equals to a 6 over here, and if it is y equal to 0, the equation of line AB should be in the form of, because both the line AB and CD will have the same slope. Slope of a line which is x-axis happens to be 0, so slope of the line AB also need to be equal to 0. So it has to be y equals to a constant. And since the distance between them should be equal to a 6 over here, understand that line AB can be above CD like this. So it could be y equal to 6, or it can also be below CD over here. So this could be y equal to 6 or a potential y equal to minus 6. Hence we have two possible scenario, that this could be equal to a y equal to 6 or y equal to a negative 6. If you look at the option number 2, because it say the following is a possible equation, since we have two possible answer and out of that one of them happens to be present over here, y equal to 6, I should choose to mark option number 2 over here. The next sum happens to be a difficult one, and I believe that many of you will possibly make a mistake if you don't read the sum very carefully. Let's read it and try to understand what has been given to us. A farmer has a quadrilateral parcel of land with a perimeter of 700 feet. So they have given the sum of the four sides to be equals to 700 feet. Two opposite angles of that parcel of land are right angles. That's a very important information given to you, while the remaining two are not. The farmer wants to do organic farming on that parcel of land, and the cost of organic farming happens to be rupee 400 per square feet. So if I can find out the, let's say, area of the quadrilateral, I can easily find out the cost of, let's say, organic farming in that particular quadratic, let's say, land parcel. And they've given you two additional piece of information, which is, let's say, statement number 1, statement number 2. And they are saying, to find out the amount of money the farmer need to spend to do organic farming on the entire parcel of land, which of the following additional information is minimally sufficient, which means you need to use it for sure to find out the, let's say, amount he need to spend on the organic farming. So in this particular case, if I don't read the two statement, first of all, what we can say from the first sentence, the sum of the four side will be equals to 700. The second part is very important. The two opposite angles of that land parcel are right angle. It simply means the sum of the opposite angles of the quadrilateral will become 90 plus 90, 180. At the same time, the sum of the other two angle also will become equals to 180, because sum of the four angle become equals to a 360 degree. And that simply means if my opposite angles are supplementary in a quadrilateral, that quadrilateral become a cyclic quadrilateral. So if I want to draw a rough diagram, let's say to start with, let's say I make a circle first. And in this particular context, this is how, suppose for example, if I call this as A, B, C and D, and since I told you this ABCD become a cyclic quadrilateral, the sum of AB plus BC plus CD plus DA will be equals to 700 feet. And in this particular case, since angle ABC is equal to 90, angle ADC also is equal to 90, I can be very sure to say that AC in that particular case is going to be nothing but diameter. So AC will become nothing but diameter of this, let's say, circle over here. So if I look at, suppose the first question, first statement, the length of one of the sides of that land parcel happens to be 110 feet. So understand they have given this as 110. For example, AB is equals to a 110. Now nothing is, let's say, known to me at this particular point of time. So if I suppose take this BC plus CD plus AD, this sum I can say would be equals to 700 minus 110 will give you a 590, but we won't be able to find out the unique value of BC and the value of CD and let's say AD over here. And hence we can get different areas, because if I look at the area over here, it must be equals to half of, I can divide this land parcel as two triangles. So triangle ABC will have an area of half AB into BC, and the other triangle ADC will have an area of half of AD into DC. So either I know all the, let's say, length AB, BC, AD, DC, let's say individually, or I know the product of AB and BC, I know the product of AD and DC. That's how we can also find out the required area of the quadrilateral here. So with this number 1 alone, we are not in situation to find out the answer. So number 1 alone is not enough. So option number 1 basically would be out in this case. Then if you look at option number 2 also basically would be out. Then if I look at number 2, it says the distance between the two corner points. Understand very properly over here, the distance between two corner point where the two non-perpendicular sides of that parcel intersect is 255 feet. Understand, if you look at over here, the two non-perpendicular sides one can say are AD and AB, where they are meeting at the point A, and CD, DC and CBC are meeting at the point C. So in a way, from let's say the second point, they are saying the length of AC is equals to 255. The length of AC is known to you as 255. Now if this is 255, understand we can think about this number 255 as possible of 5 into 51. So 5 into 3 into 17. We can create multiple, let's say, values for AB, BC and AD, DC. Again, I am saying they have not told also the sides are also integer over here, each of them. So for example, the number 17 strikes to me as 8, 15, 17. If I multiply by 15, you get 120, 225 and 255. This is going to give you one possible, let's say, 3 right angle triangle sides. Again, we can have multiple possibility. As I told you, 3, 4, 5 is another triplet. So if I multiply now, let's say by 51, so 51 into 3 is going to be a 153, 204 and a 255. So we can have multiple possibility, let's say, to find out the combination of AD, DC and let's say over here. Again, please note, they may or may not be all integers also over here. So now, what is going to happen? Individually, 1 not enough. Number 2 also is not enough. I will now, let's say, tend to combine both the information. So understand, if I know, suppose the length of AB, for example, one of them was given to you as 110, and I know the length of AC, that simply mean one thing, that we can find out the length of BC. I won't waste my time in finding out the value. I'm just saying the value of AB is known to me. The value of BC with the help of Pythagoras would be known to me. The whole objective in DS is not to find out the value, but to check whether we can find out the value or not. Okay. So yes, with the help of Pythagoras, we can find out the value of BC. Yes. So area of ABC can be found out. Now understand, since BC is known to you, we know CD plus AD value. So for example, the value, if I call this as X and this as Y, then what we can say is that we know how much is X plus Y. So X plus Y is known to you. At the same time, if I apply Pythagoras theorem, I can say X square plus Y square should be equals to 255 square. So what is going to happen, since you know your X square plus Y square, since you know X plus Y, if I apply, let's say, simple algebraic rule over here saying that X plus Y whole square is equals to X square plus Y square plus 2XY. So if X plus Y is known to me, The sum of x square plus y square also is known to me. We can easily find out the value of x into y. Even we can find out the value of x and y as well. But ultimately we wanted the product of x and y. We can easily find out the product of x and y. And if I look at the area of the triangle ADC, which is nothing but half of x into y, we can find out the area of ADC. We already know the value of area of the triangle ABC, which means what? If I combine both the statement, then we can find out the area of the quadrilateral, and hence we can find out the cost which is going to be associated by doing the organic farming at that land parcel over here. So my required answer for this particular question would be option number 3 in this case. In the next sum, it is given that the solid trophy consisting of two parts has been designed in the following manner. So people, let's say, who are good with, let's say, 3D geometry would be able to do it very comfortably. The bottom part is a frustum of a cone with the bottom radius 30 centimeter and the top radius 20 centimeter. So we have a frustum of a cone, something like this. Of this nature. So top radius 20, bottom radius to be equals to 30 and a height of basically 40. While the top part is a hemisphere of radius 20 centimeters. So on the top you have a hemisphere with the same radius of, one can say, 20 centimeter. Moreover, the flat surface of the hemisphere is same as the top surface of the frustum. That's why you can say both of them are going to have the same radius of 20 each. That confirm with this particular statement. If the entire trophy, look at the word, if the entire trophy is to be gold plated at the cost of rupee 40 per square centimeter, what would be the cost of gold plating to be closest to? So understand, because they've given my, let's say, cost for per square centimeter, if I can find out the required, let's say, area which is supposed to be gold plated, we can multiply that number by 40 to arrive at our answer. So in this particular context, first of all, if I suppose look at this is 20, this is 30. So I will first of all, let's say, try to find out the hemisphere part. So for the hemisphere part, the CSA, the curved surface area of the hemisphere, the formula basically is equals to 2 pi r square. So it will be equals to a 2 pi r square, and r in this particular case happens to be equals to a 20. So 2 pi 20 square giving you 800 pi. Then we are also supposed to, let's say, put at the base. So I will find out the area of the bottom, which one can say have a radius of, one can say, 30 centimeter. So required area must be equals to pi times of capital R square, and that will lead to pi into 30 square, or simply a 900 pi. The only remaining part right now is to find out the curved surface area of the frustum. And how to find out the curved surface area of the frustum? So for that, if I look at the formula, which is equals to pi times of L into capital R plus small r. But the only thing missing right now is to find out the value of, let's say, capital L. Now, if you, let's say, try to understand this, if I tend to construct the entire part, this will look like a similar triangles. This is 30. This is, let's say, a 20. So this height, the small height and the big height will be in the ratio of 20 by 30, or simply 2:3. If I call this as 2h, this would be equals to a 3h. So this part simply become, one can say, equals to a h over here. And this h is known to you. This h basically is known to you as the number, one can say, nothing but 40. This is known to you as 40. So if h is 40, then this part simply become equals to 80. And this part simply become equals to a 120. And then if I take the help of, let's say, Pythagoras theorem, we can find out that this particular thing will come out to be a 20 root 17. The slant height of, one can say, the smaller cone will be 20 root 17. And this part, similarly, because the ratio happens to be nothing but 4:1 over here, will come out to be 30 root 17. So this portion, which you can say is the capital L of the frustum, will be 30 root 17 minus 20 root 17 giving you a 10 root 17. And then we can easily find out, let's say, the required curved surface area of the frustum. Understand how I got this 20 root 17 part basically would be under root of 20 square plus a 80 square. If I take out 20 square outside the root, this will become 20 times of root of 1 square plus 4 square. And this part become 1 plus 16 giving you 17, and hence a root of, let's say, 17 coming over there. Now root of 17, if you look at 10 root 17 part become nothing but root of 1700. So this is going to become equals to pi into root of 1700 times 30 plus 20. So this part become equals to 50 pi into root 1700. Now we have to, let's say, find out the approximate value in this particular context. So root of 1700, we know 40 square one can say is 1600, 41 square become a 1681, and 42 square one can say is going to be 1764. So this number is, one can say, more than 41 but less than 42. So 41 point maybe, let's say, 1 or 41.2 is what you can take. So 50 pi into 41. Let's say if I take approximately 41, because options are also very, very spaced out. Let's take a round figure number, 41. This part will become 0 and this will become 5. So 2050 pi is the required curved surface area of the frustum. And hence, if you look at, suppose the required total area to be, let's say, gold plated, it has to be 800 pi plus 900 pi becoming a 1700 pi plus this number. So total area will be equals to 2050 pi plus a 1700 pi giving you a 3750 pi. And then the required cost must be equals to 3750 pi into the number 40. So if you look at over here, this part will be simple because 3750 into 3 approximately one can say will come out to be 375 into 3, for example, will give you a 1125. So this part 3750 into 3 will approximately 11250, and this number, if I want to multiply it by 40, 2 zeros in the end, so 1125 into, let's say, 4 will not going to be even, let's say, 5000 for that matter. So the answer, one can say, definitely has to be more than 4 lakhs but less than 5 lakh. If I look at the option, I should choose to mark option number 1 as a required answer for this question. If I show some, let's say, further calculation, if I look at, suppose, this part 3750 into 40 pi, this thing basically will become equals to 20 in the end. 375 into 4 simply become 15,000. So 1,50,000 is what 3750 into 40 would be, times of pi, which you can say is approximately 3.14. So 1,50,000 into 3 will simply become 4,50,000, and then accordingly this will be another, one can say, 2 odd lakh. That's why one can say 4,73,000 become your required answer. Hence option number 1 is the required answer for this question. In the next sum, it is given that a straight line L1 has the equation y equal to k times x minus 1, where k is some real number, which you can say in this particular case k is representing the slope of the line. The straight line L1 intersect another straight line L2 at a point called, let's say, 5, 8. It simply means that both this line L1 and L2 are passing through a 5, 8. So this 5, 8 must satisfy the equation of line L1 as well. And we can easily find out the value of, let's say, k from there. If I do that, what is going to happen is, put y as 8. So 8 is equals to k times 5 minus 1. So 8 is equals to 4k, k become equals to 2. So we are able to find out k to be equals to 2. Now some info have been given to us about L1 and, let's say, L2 as well. So what we can say, since I got the value of k to be equals to 2, I can say for line L1, the slope is 2. At the same time, for line L1, if I look at the x-intercept, if you put, let's say, y to be equals to 0, you will find out x to be equals to 1. If I, let's say, want to find out your y-intercept, if I put, let's say, x to be equals to 0, the required value of y become equals to minus k. So minus 2 is my required, let's say, y-intercept. And they also have talked about distance from the origin to one of the lines. If I look at the origin and, let's say, line L1, the required distance, what is the formula? Understand, let's say, if I want to find a distance of a 0, 0, the perpendicular distance on a line, one can say ax plus by plus c equals to 0. The required distance over here is mod of c divided by root of a square plus b square. So in this particular case, if I look at my required equation, y is equals to 2x minus 2. So 2x minus y minus 2 is equals to 0. If I use this simple formula, one can simply say it will be mod of minus 2 divided by under root of 2 square plus 1 square, and this thing simply become equals to a 2 divided by root 5. So let's see the statement first of all, and then we can look at line L2 as well. Line L1 passes through the point 1, 0, x-intercept is 1, this is true. The second one talks about distance from the origin to one of the line is 3 by, let's say, root 2. That is not known to us at this particular point of time, because we have not taken L2 scenario also over here. We can now take the scenario for L2 as well. So we have got line 1 to be like this, 2x minus y minus 2 equals to 0. And for line L2, if I use the slope intercept form as well, or the point slope form, so it's going to be L2 have a slope of 1, so line 2 will have a slope of 1, and the point is 5, 8, so y minus 8 is equal to slope into x minus 5, and that basically will give you x minus y plus 3 to be equal to a 0. So if you look at, suppose, the distance of the origin from the line L2, that one can say constant term is 3 divided by root of 1 square plus 1 square, giving you a root 2. So 3 by root 2 is required distance of origin from line L2. This is also true. Third one seems to be false right now at the moment. Let me just assess other options as well. Distance between the x-intercept of the two line is 4. Understand, for line L1 the x-intercept is 1. Over here, if you put y to be equals to 0, x will become equals to a negative 3. So x-intercept is this. And the required distance, as you can say, between minus 3 and 1 is indeed 4. This also is true. If you put x as 0, you will get y to be equals to 3. So your y-intercept will become equals to 3. And then if you look at over here, the fifth option, y-intercept is minus 2, and here we have 3, and this is going to be a false. If I look at option number 3, this was given to you as 2 by root 5, and hence this is going to be true over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 are true, and number 5 is false, hence 5 is the answer for this question. The next sum happens to be a tricky one, and only the people who understand the concept of numbers really well can crack this sum. Let's understand the sum first. Arun selected an integer x between 2 and 40, both including, let's say, 2 and 40. He noticed that the greatest common divisor, in other words HCF, of the selected integer x and any other integer between 2 and 40, both inclusive, is equals to 1. What does that mean? If you look at HCF of the number x and any number, yes, they are saying from 2 to 40, is going to be equals to 1. What does that mean? Simply word, x and the number from 2 to 40 are going to be co-prime to each other. They cannot have anything, let's say, common between them, and they are saying any other factor, any other integer. So in this particular case, the most common thing which strikes to you is that the value of x need to be a prime number. And it has to be, one can say, can I include the number 2? The answer is no. Understand, if I take x to be equals to 2 and the other integer could be a 4, 6, 10 and so on, then the HCF will no longer remain 1. It can become something else as well. Can we take the value of x to be some other prime number 3? Again, the answer is no. From the number 2 to 40, we can choose a number which is going to be a multiple of 3. So how to, let's say, think about it? It has to be something to do with a prime number for sure. But the point is, we should look for those prime numbers which are going to be more than half of the number 40. Reason being, for example, if I think about the number x as 19, then we can take a number which you can say is going to be a multiple of 19, like 38. So 19 and 38, one can say, are going to have HCF of 19 and not a 1 over here. But moment we take, suppose, any prime which is more than half of the number 40, which is 20, if I think about prime which are more than 20, we can't get a multiple because their multiple are going to cross the 40 mark. Because understand, if I want what is the next multiple of a number n, and the answer would be 2 times of n. So over here, if you look at the number 23, if I take as x, then from the number 2 to, let's say, 40, other than 23, every, let's say, number will have a HCF of 1 with 23. So 23 is possible, then 29, 31, 37. These are the only 4 prime numbers which you can say are between 2 and 40, which are, let's say, more than half of the number 40, and which doesn't have any multiple in the interval, let's say, 2 to 40. That's why for this particular question, the required answer has to be 4 values are there: 23, 29, 31, 37. Hence option number 1 is the answer for this question. The next sum is a highly challenging problem, and let's say it will be difficult for people to understand even in the exam condition. So for the exam perspective, this question basically should have been left out. Let us see what is going to be the right approach. There are 5 dustbins along a circular path at different places. Ramesh takes multiple rounds of the path every morning, always at the same speed. He noticed that it took him a different number of steps to walk between any 2 consecutive dustbins. So what I'm doing is, suppose for example, I have taken a circle and suppose I have put, let's say, 5 dustbins over here. Please note, distance between any 2 dustbins are going to be consecutive, one have to be a different number. Different number of steps, which means different distance, let's say, between dustbin 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 1 and so on like this. I'm just putting here dustbin 1, dustbin 2. These are not equally spaced over here. It may look like. And suppose if I say I have taken distance between dustbin 1 and 2 to be A, small a, this is B, this is C, this is D, and this is E over here. And none of A, B, C, D, E are basically equal over here. Now what they have told you is, let's read the last part very, very carefully. Ramesh also noticed that starting from any dustbin, it took a minimum 800 steps. Minimum 800. It can be more than this also, but least possible is going to be 800 to reach every second dustbin. For example, in this particular context, I will do, for the sake of convenience, I will assume that this A, B, C, D, E are in the ascending order. A less than B, to make my life simpler, because we can have other scenario also. But if I assume this A, B, C, D, E are going to be in the ascending order, then they are saying minimum 800 steps, which you can say is equivalent to, because we can find out distance as well, because finally they have also given that Ramesh 1 step is equivalent to 0.77 meter. So when you multiply 0.77 with the number of steps taken, we can find out the distance between, let's say, 2 dustbin over here. So if you look at, if I want to reach the every second dustbin, minimum 800 steps are going to be required. So tell me, from which particular dustbin, if I have to go, I will get the least possible distance, and one can simply say from D1 to D3, because A and B are the 2 lowest distance. So one can say the value of A plus B will become equals to 800. Minimum 800, understand this part. Now since I have taken them in order, it could have been A, C, B, D, E as well. In that particular case, your A plus C could be equals to 800, or B plus C also could be equals to 800. But we are finding out the, let's say, worst scenario, finding out the situation where we can find out the smallest possible circumference of this arrangement. So A plus B become equals to 800. On the other hand, starting from any of the dustbin, it took a maximum 1260 step to reach every third dustbin. So now understand, if you look at, if you want to reach every third dustbin, what is going to be your largest possible distance covered, because they use the term maximum. So when you take C plus D plus E, that simply means maybe going from D3 to D1, or let's say moving anti-clockwise from D1 to D3, you are going to cover the max possible distance. So C plus D plus E will be equals to 1260. So if I now, let's say, look at my best possible step, the smallest circumference of the circle will be nothing but 800 plus 1260, giving you 2060 steps minimum. So from this we can find out the smallest possible circumference in terms of distance as well. So this will be nothing but you multiply this number of steps into 0.77 meter per steps. So 2060 into 77 by 100, this becomes your required minimum possible distance. And what is the question? If you read the question properly, they have told you width of the path is negligible. Which of the following can be the radius of the circular path? So you want, let's say, the radius which is going to give you a minimum possible circumference of this much, 2060 into 77 by 100. We will use the formula for the circumference of a circle as 2 pi r. So 2 pi r is equals to 2060 into 77 by 100. Let's replace the number pi as 22 by 7. So this is going to become 1030. 10 would be out. 11 2s are, 11 7s are. So the required value of r becomes 103 into 49 divided by 10 into 2 over here. And this thing, let's say if you calculate, will come out to be 252.35. You can take the help of the online calci over here, or you can just approximate this number also as 25, and then you can take this as 5, this as 2. Roughly this will become 515 divided by 2. So 252.5 approximately is what you are going to get in case you want to avoid calculator. So if I got 252.35, and that will be the minimum possible radius to get this much circumference, so the required answer will be any value of r which is above this number. If I look at the option choices, this number 220, 230, 240 and 250 are all below this number, so it has to be 260, hence option number 2 is the required answer. If I look at this particular question, it is given that if a, b and c are all positive integer with 4a more than b, then which of the following condition is both necessary, sufficient for the expression cube root of 3 power a, 21 power 3a minus b into 49 raised to 2b plus c to be a positive integer. And they have given certain condition like that each of a, b, c are divisible by 3, etc., etc., and so on. Now understand, in this particular question, the approach basically would be, if I look at the term present inside the cube root, I can see the numbers have base as 3, 21 and 49. Out of which one can say 21 contain 3 and 7 as the prime factor, and the number 49 basically contains 7 as the prime factor. So what you want to do is write, let's say, everything in terms of powers of 3 and the powers of 7, and one can say the powers of 3 and the powers of 7 should be a multiple of 3. So we are going to focus on that particular aspect over here. So let's look at this expression. So suppose if I look at, we have cube root of, the first term will remain in the form of 3 power a. Now the number, if you look at 21, I can split as 3 into 7. And suppose if I look at the property a into b whole power n, that will be equals to a power n times b power n. So over here the number 21 raised to 3a minus b, I can very much write as a 3 power 3a minus b into a 7 raised to a 3a minus b. And then finally, if you look at the last term, 49 basically is 7 square. So that basically will become 7 square raised to 2b plus c, and we know that a power m whole raised to n will be equals to a raised to m times n. So here the term 2 will get multiplied with 2b plus c, giving you 7 raised to 4b plus 2c. So 7 raised to 4b plus 2c. And now we know the basic law of indices. If I multiply two terms with the like basis, the power can simply be added. So if I look at, suppose next thing will be cube root of, if I look at these two terms over here, these two powers can simply be added. So one can say 3 raised to, if you look at over here, a plus 3a minus b will become 4a minus b. If I now look at the next two terms, because they are the, let's say, something raised to 7 raised to something, here again 3a minus b plus 2b plus 2c, this part will become 3a plus 3b plus a 2c over here. And now understand a very simple thing in this particular context. They have given some, let's say, inequality, a relation between a and b, and that was 4a is more than b. If 4a is more than b, the term 4a minus b will be more than 0. And as I told you, the power of, let's say, 3 and the power of 7 need to be, one can say, divisible by 3, need to be a multiple of 3. So over here, the term 4a minus b definitely, one can say, need to be a multiple of 3. So the least value of 4a minus b can be 3, can be a 6. We don't, let's say, bother about this part really much. Cube root of, if you look at this term properly, the term 3 raised to 4a minus b, I can write this 4a minus b term as 3a plus a minus b. And understand the term 3a is definitely going to be a multiple of 3. So we want the term a minus b to be divisible by 3 over here. Here also 7 raised to, one can say, 3 common. If I look at over here, 3 raised to a plus b plus a 2c. And now suppose if I remove this cube root sign, then this whole part need to be, one can say, divide by 3 here. And then if I simplify this, if I split this part, so we know that the nth root of a is basically equals to a power 1 by n, and that is the property which we are trying to apply over here. And one can clearly see in this particular context 3 raised to a plus a minus b divided by 3. In case of this, 7 raised to a plus b plus, so a 2c by 3. Now understand, we wanted this expression to be a positive integer. So the only concern, let's say, for right now for me will be this term a minus b upon 3. This part should not become a fraction. So what you can say is that the term a minus b definitely need to be a multiple of 3. At the same time, if I look at the power of 7, I don't have the concern with the term a plus b because this part itself is a positive integer. So the concern basically will be with respect to the term 2c by 3. Now for the term 2c by 3 to be a multiple of, to be a integer, positive integer, one can say c need to be a multiple of 3. So what is the conclusion? So for the expression to be a positive integer, the power of c need to be a positive integer. The power of 7 also need to be a positive integer. For the power of 3 to be a positive integer, one can say a minus b need to be divisible by 3, and for the power of 7 to be a positive integer, one can say the term 2c by 3 need to be an integer, and that basically means the term c need to be divisible by 3. So if you look at the, let's say, options carefully, a, b, c are divisible by 3. That part basically is also going to work over here, but not necessarily correct. I want a minus b to be divisible by 3 and c to be divisible by 3. So again, if you look at the term a minus b plus 2c need to be divisible by 3, this part again will be not necessarily important. But if I look at the option number 4 carefully, a minus b and c are divisible by 3 is necessarily important. Understand, option number 1 is also going to give you a situation where the expression will come out to be positive integer, but that condition is not necessarily sufficient over here. So option number 4 is my required answer for this question. In the next sum, they have given for how many distinct real values of x Does the equation below hold true? And what they have told you, take a to be, let's say, more than 0. Now understand, in this particular case, a have been given to as a base of a log. And what we can say is that, suppose in this particular context, if I go in a very non-conventional manner, we know this particular property that, suppose if I have log a to the base b divide by log of c to the base b, this thing one can write as log a to the base c. That property we can choose to apply over here. So if I do that, and if I see what is the possible mistake people might have made in the actual exam as well. If I apply that particular, let's say, property, the expression will be written as x square times of, this will become log of 16 base 32. The next term will become log of 64 base 32 minus x to be equals to 0. And now understand, the number 16, 32, 64 are all, let's say, powers of 2, and that can be easily, let's say, written in a proper fractional format. So if I look at, suppose, the term, for example, log this 16, this basically is log of, one can say, a 2 power 4. The term log divide by, I can say, log 16 by log 32. Log 32 I can simply say would be log of 2 power 5. Then here 64 basically is 2 power 6, 32 again is 2 power 5 minus x. So if I look at the term log of 16 base 32, it essentially going to become nothing but a 4 by 5, because this 4 will come in front, this 5 also is going to come in front. It will become 4 log 2 divided by 5 log 2, and it simply become x square into 4 by 5. Likewise, if I look at the second term over here, it will become 6 log 2 divided by 5 log 2. So that term will become nothing but 6 by 5 here minus x equals to 0. And now this looks like a very simple quadratic, which we can, let's say, solve and find out the value. So if I suppose multiply by 5, it becomes 4x square minus 6 minus 5x. So if I rearrange the term, minus 5x minus 6 equals to 0. And now I can think of, let's say, solving it with the help of quadratic formula, or we can, let's say, choose to do it with the help of, one can say, middle term split. So here if you look at 4 into 6 becomes 24. If I look at the factors of 24 where the difference, one can say, comes out to be 5, I can think about the number 8 and 3. 8 minus 3 is 5, 8 into 3 is 24. So I will split this number minus 5x as minus 8x plus 3x. And then if I look at the factorization, if I look at the first two term, I can take 4x common, I get x minus 2. In the next two term, again, if I take 3 common, I get x minus 2. So one can say x minus 2 is one factor and 4x plus 3 is the other factor. So the value of x become equals to 2 or a negative 3 by 4. Now in the context of log, one need to be very, very careful. Clearly x equals to 2 or minus 3 by 4 perfectly sounds possible, and hence many of us over here would be, let's say, tempted to mark option number 2 over here. But what is the problem in case someone choose option number 2 over here as the answer? Understand, the condition which they have told you is a being positive. Now what is going to happen if the value of a become equals to 1? If the value of a will become equals to 1, log of something where the base happens to be equals to 1, that is not defined. So the base of log cannot be equals to 1 over here. In that particular context, the expression which we have tried to evaluate, log 16 base a upon log of 32 base a, is going to become undefined. And that is why the right answer for this particular question would be depends on the value of a. Because if the condition was a is above 1, in that particular case we are going to find out two distinct real values of x. But since the value of a has been told to you as positive, where it can possibly become equals to 1, so other than 1, this is perfectly fine. So if a is positive and a is not equals to 1, in that particular case we do have two real values of x. But in absence of that, we cannot, let's say, find out the answer, because the first term and the second term becomes undefined. Hence the right answer for this particular question would be option number 3. So understand, a very, very tricky question where people, let's say, make a lot of mistakes in a sum like this. In the next one, it is a puzzle based question, and again people, let's say, who understand the concept of, one can say, pigeonhole principle, they will get this sum, let's say, correct, and that too in a very short span of time. What has been given: in a computer game, each move requires pressing a button. When the button is pressed for the first time as a move, the computer randomly chooses a cell from, let's say, 4 cross 4 grid. So we have 16 places, and puts an X mark on that particular cell. When the button is pressed subsequently, the computer randomly chooses a cell from the remaining unmarked cell and put a X mark on that particular cell. So after every, let's say, pressing of a button, one basically put a X mark in a particular cell which is not occupied. This goes on, so this will continue till what particular point? Till the end of the game. And when will the game end? They have given the required condition. The game ends when either all the cells in any row, look at the keyword, when all the cells in any row or all the cells in any column are marked with X. So moment, suppose if I say, because it's a 4 cross 4 grid, moment suppose we got 4X, let's say, in the first row or second row or third row or the fourth row, or for that matter, let's say all the 4X are present in the first column, second column, third column and the fourth column. In that particular case, the game basically is going to end at that moment. Now the question says, what is the maximum possible number of times? Look at the keyword, maximum possible number of times a player has to press the button to finish the game. So what you want is, the objective in this particular question is, you want to, let's say, delay the end of the game. So you want to press as many buttons as possible. Now when can this be achieved? As we know, a game basically is going to be over moment suppose we have 4X coming in a particular row. So what is the max number of, let's say, button, let's say most max number of, let's say, X I can put in a particular row such that the game doesn't end? And the answer basically would be, one can say, 3. So what you want a situation where every row basically contains 3X. Every, let's say, column also contains 3X, and at that particular point of time, the game will not going to end. So I will take a very simplistic scenario. Suppose if I draw a rough diagram creating a 4 cross 4 grid. As I told you, I want the game not to end as early as possible, so I want to delay the end over here. So let's say I'm saying in the first row we have got 3X, and those 3X basically are in the first, second and the third column. Suppose if I just write here R1 for the representation purpose, R3, R4, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, not required. Now in the row number 2, suppose we place the 3X in column 2, column 3, column 4. In row 3, suppose we put the 3X in column 3, column 4, column 1. And then finally, suppose if I look at row number 4, we will put in column number 4, column number 1 and column number 2. So you can see, if I think from the row perspective right now, each of the row contains 3X. Also at this particular moment, you can observe that column number 1 contains 3X, column number 2 also contains 3X, column number 3 also contains 3X, column number 4 also contains 3X, and the game has not been over at the moment. And so far basically we have mode, let's say, press 12 times, 12 press, and the game is not over yet. Now we have 4 slots remaining. If I press for the 13th time, in that particular case the next X is either going to come over here or over here. So in R1 C4, or let's say R2 C1 or R3 C2 or R4 C3, but whatever be the case, you are going to be very certain that one of the row or the column is going to contain the 4X, and that means the game basically is going to be over. So in the next meeting, next, let's say, pressing, so 13th press of a button, let's say I put the number over here, one can see R1 contains 4X, column 4 also contains 4X, and that simply means over here that the game basically will be over, and the max possible number of time one has to press the button is going to be 13, which happens to be option number 4 over here. So if you look at, suppose, how to generalize in this particular scenario, suppose if I say we have a 5 cross 5 grid, That means moment suppose a row or a column contain 5x, the game basically will be over. So what is the worst possible scenario? A row or a column containing 4x. So let's say first row contains 4, second row contains 4, third row contains 4, fourth row contains 4, fifth row contains 4. So if you look at over here 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, so far things become nothing but one can say a 20. And let's say none of the row or the column basically holds, let's say 5x over here. But the next pressing will ensure that one of the row and one of the column will contain 4x and the game basically will be over. So in the scenario, one can say when we have, let's say, a 5 cross 5 grid, it will be nothing but 4 into 5 plus 1, giving you, one can say, 21 as the required answer for that question. In this sum, it is given that you have a quadratic function f of x given to you as ax square plus bx plus a, having two irrational root. A very, very important thing mentioned over here, two irrational root. It simply means the discriminant of this quadratic has to be more than 0. At the same time, it has to be a let's say non-perfect square quantity, because you want the roots to be irrational at the same time real. So here delta need to be positive and equals to a non-perfect square. And they have told you, well, a and b being the two positive integer such that both a and b are less than equals to 9. So if I look at the worst possible case, a could take values from 1 to 9, b can also take values from 1 to 9 over here. But we have to keep in mind the condition delta need to be positive and a non-perfect square quantity. Then they are saying if all such permissible pair A and B are equally likely to happen, what is the probability that A plus B is greater than 9 over here? So what we have to do is first of all look at all these possible pairs of A and B such that delta is positive and delta is not equals to a perfect square. So here if you look at, first of all, what is delta in this particular case? So delta discriminant would be equals to B square minus 4 into the coefficient of x square times the constant term, which also is a, which basically means b square minus 4a square need to be more than 0, and this should not be equals to a perfect square quantity as well. So in this particular case, you can simply say essentially you want b square to be more than 4 times of a square. So here if you look at this, you can also say that b square basically has to be more than twice of a whole square. Now what is the upper limit on the value of b? One can say b in this particular case has to be equals to 81, because I can take the largest possible value of b to be 9 over here. So this is going to give you that 81, basically 81 will be more than 4a square, or one can say a square has to be less than 20.25. And that simply means since a and b are positive integer, the largest a we can think of is going to be 4. I can't take the value of, let's say, a to be 5 or more. So I will try, let's say, with the values of a to be 1, 2, 3 and then 4 over here. So I will write down the values of a and b. If I take the value of a to be equals to 1, my, let's say, inequality is going to become that b square need to be more than 4 over here. In this particular context, one can say the value of b I can take will be minimum 3. So 3 up to 9 are going to be acceptable. So 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 8 and 1, 9. These are going to be all possible. At the same time, suppose if I check the b square minus 4a square scenario, so 9 minus, let's say, 4 will give you 5. 16 minus 4 basically will give me a 12. Over here, if I look at 25 minus 4 will give you 21. So in this particular context, everything b square minus 4a square term comes out to be nothing but one can say your non-square quantity. Okay. Then if I take the value of a to be equals to 2, in that case the condition 4a square term will become nothing but 16. So b square need to be more than 16, and here one can take the minimum value of b to be equals to a 5 here. So if a is 2, b can be 5, 6, 7, 8 and a 9. Now in this particular context, if I look at the value of, let's say, b square minus 4a square, for this particular thing, the term b square minus 4a square will become 25 minus 4 into 4, 25 minus 16 become equals to 9, and at that particular moment, the roots are going to be rational and not irrational. That's why this case is going to be ruled out. If I look at 6 square minus 16, that is fine. 49 minus 16 is perfectly fine. 64 minus 16 also is perfectly fine. 81 minus 16 also is perfectly fine over here. Then you take the value of a to be equals to 3. If you take the value of a to be equals to 3, in that case the term 4 times of a square simply becomes 36. So here the only possibility for b could be a 7, 8 or a 9. So a, b could be 3, 7, 3, 8, 3, 9. And finally, suppose if I take a to be 4, as I told, the highest value of a I can take will be 4. In that case, the condition basically will become, one can say b square has to be more than 64, and that will give you the only value for b to be equals to a 9 over here. And in no other case you will find out the term b square minus 4a square to come out to be a perfect square quantity. So if I look at the count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. So my total possibility where you are going to get irrational roots are going to be 15. That's my sample space. And out of that, I am looking for the probability such that a plus b is more than 9. So if I look at the favorable cases, I want a plus b to be more than 9. We will find the case of 1, 9, then 2, 8, 2, 9, 3, 7, 3, 8, 3, 9 and 4, 9. If I look at the count here, I got 7 favorable case out of 15. Hence, the required probability for this particular question will be 7 upon 15. So one should choose to mark option number 2 as the answer for this question. The next sum basically involves the, let's say, concept of statistics, which you can say something like a median, range, mean, etc. They are saying here 8 employees of an organization have been rated on a scale of 1 to 50 for their performance. All the ratings are integers, important condition. The overall average rating of the 8 employee is 30, while the 5 employee with the highest rating is going to have an average of 38. And then they are saying the 5 employee with the lowest average rating happens to be a 25 over here. Suppose if I say these are the, let's say, 8 employee and the ratings are, let's say, A, B, C up to, let's say, H, for example, in the ascending order. Again, note they have not told that they are distinct rating. So I will take the scenario where I will say A less than equals to B less than equals to C, something of this kind. Because they have not used the condition in this particular manner. So for sure, when they say about the overall average is coming out to be 30, so we know that average into the number of term will give me required sum. So one of the equation is definitely going to be A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F plus G plus H. This basically has to be equals to a 30 into 8, giving you a 240. That much basically we can say over here. And then they are saying while the 5 employee with the highest rating, that definitely has to be, one can say D, E, F, G, H. So D plus E plus F plus G plus H, their average happens to be 38. So required sum of D, E, F, G, H must be equals to 38 times of 5, giving you a 190. So from this one can easily find out the sum of A plus B plus C would be how much. Then they also told you the 5 employee with the lowest rating have average of 25. That simply means A plus B plus C plus D plus E. So A plus B plus C plus D plus E, and this sum should be equals to a 25 into 5, giving you a 125. So now with the help of the 3 equation, let's see what all we can decode. As I told, suppose if I do equation 1 minus equation number 2, I will get A plus B plus C to be equals to a 50. 240 minus 190. If I do equation 1 minus, let's say, equation number 3, in that case we can find out the sum of F plus G plus H, the 3 highest, should be equals to, one can say, 240 minus 125, giving you 115. This much is what is known to us at the moment. At the same time, then we can easily find out how much is going to be your D plus E. So D plus E, if I look at, will be equals to 240 minus sum of these two numbers. Together, if I look at these two numbers over here, 50 plus 115 will become 165. And if you subtract, let's say 240 minus 165, one get a 75. So this is what we have, let's say, from your, let's say, first piece of information. So the first three have a sum of, one can say, 50. The next two will have a sum of 75, and the last three will have a sum of 115. And what they have told you over here is that which are the following about the rating obtained by the 8th employee is definitely false. What does that mean? That this cannot be true in any case. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 over here. Let's try to look at each of the options individually. Suppose if I look at number 1 and I see whether this is possible or not, the third lowest rating obtained is 37. If this is 37, that simply means C has been given to you as 37. So what I can say right now is that A plus B has to be other 13, which is definitely going to be possible. You can have a scenario like one can say 112, 211, 310, very much, let's say all this possibility is going to be there. And this basically would mean your F plus G plus H is equals to a 115 over here. Now, if I look at F plus G plus H is 115, then what can you say about the lowest possible value this F, G, H can take? Definitely when all of them are nearly equal. So maybe if I take them as like 38, 38 and 39, because 114 divided by 3 will give me 38. If I do this combination, I think this is definitely going to be possible. So I can have 38, 38, 39. This is very much possible. Can I take something else? Can I put this number as 39? This number has to be, one can say, minimum equals to, or one can say max equals to a 38 over here. We can't put a 39 over here. Definitely we can have a value lower than this for sure. But if I do that, if I take this number as 37, then this is definitely going to be possible. But in that particular scenario, since third value and third lowest and third highest become same, the middle two also need to be equal, 37, 37 each. But that will take D plus E to 74. But I want D plus E to be equals to a 75 over here. So that with that in mind, if this number is 38, and this is very much possible to give you F plus G plus H is 115, D plus E is 75 over here. So definitely we can have one number as 37 and this number as 38 over here. So what we are able to see, number 1 is possible. Have they told distinct? Then I would say it's not going to be possible over here, but this is possible. Hence, not the answer. Hence, not the answer. Let's try to look at the second one. The lowest rating is 1. As you've seen in the previous one, we have taken this number as 37, which will give you A plus B as a possible 13. And we can do this 112, and that is also going to be very much possible. 37, 38, 38, 38, and let's say a 39. This is going to follow every condition. So number 2 is also possible, hence not the answer. If I look at the next one, they are saying that the median of the 8 rating happens to be 37.5. Understand the median in case we have even number of term basically would mean the average of this two is 37.5, which is definitely going to be true because ultimately D plus E is 75 and the required median is going to be 75 by 2. This is always true. And this is going to be possible because we have seen number 1 scenario also will lead to those numbers as 37 and 38. Possible. Hence not the answer. Then if you look at the next one, the second highest rating operand is 38. Again, we have seen in case number 1 that this value was 38 possible, 38, 39, 38, 37, 38, 37, and this could lead to multiple possibilities. So this 38 is also possible, hence not the answer. If 1, 2, 3, 4 are ruled out, one can safely choose to mark option number 5. But let us also explore number 5 properly. They are saying highest rating obtained is going to be equals to a 40. If this is going to be equals to a 40, this basically would mean your F plus G need to be equals to remain 75. Now the numbers definitely are going to be integers over here. If f plus g is 75, in that particular case, this I can put as 37 and 38. I can decrease this number to possibly a 36, 39 as well, but the highest I can put here will be 37 and a 38. But if I do that, in that particular case, the max I can put over here will be 37 each. But that will lead to, one can say, d plus e to be equal to 74 and not a 75. What does that mean? This 37 won't work. If I can't put a 30, if this won't work, putting 36 also won't work. In that case, the max I can put will be a 72 for d plus e. So if this was 38, this is going to work fine. But if the third highest becomes 37, that's going to be a problem. That is why if you look at number 5, is not going to be possible. And that's why number 5 is going to be the answer for this particular question. In the next sum, it is given that an industrial robo manufacturing company is tasked to design humanoid robots to be used in the warehouses, where the robo need to pick items from a stack of cells. The height of the topmost cell from the ground happens to be 7 feet, a very, very important information. To operate, the robo has to move on a track running parallel to the stack of the cells. If the track is fixed 1 foot away from the base of the stack of the cells, further, the robo cannot raise the arm by more than 60 degrees from the horizontal plane. If the robo arms are attached to its shoulder, what should be the minimum height of the robo from the ground to the shoulder of its arm to reach the topmost cell? So understand what they're trying to convey in this particular case. Suppose we have the top shelf where the, let's say, height is, let's say, given to you, one can say as a 7 meters. Now, if you look at, suppose, the track where the robo basically can move, the distance basically happens to be nothing but a 1 meter over here. Now, suppose if I say this is the height at which you can say the robo is over here, understand there is, I could, let's say, have a height like this also. So this is the shoulder height. In this particular case, you can say arm is of, let's say, length 1, and in that particular case, it's able to reach the top of the cell. But what is the objective? Objective is to minimize least height of the robo from the ground to the shoulder. This is a shoulder, for example. Now understand, they have given that the robo arm over here cannot, let's say, raise beyond 60 degree. The max possible, let's say, angle which it can made with the help of the horizontal ground must be a 60 degree. So definitely, if you want that particular scenario, suppose if I say this is the height and the robo basically is going to reach the top self with the help of what angle? 60 degree. You want this angle to be as high as possible for this height to be as low as possible over here. So in this particular context, if I look at, suppose if I give this name A, B, C, D, I want to minimize CD. This is, suppose, some point E over here. The distance CE is equals to a 1 meter. And the task is to find out the lowest value of CD. Understand, to find out the lowest value of CD, this AE has to be as high as possible. Now understand, if you look at this triangle AEC, it happens to be a very special normal triangle, a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And we know in case of a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the side opposite to them are always in the ratio of 1 is to root 3 is to 2. So here, if I know that in front of 30 degree, if I have 1, then in front of 60 degree, it has to be a root 3. In front of 90, it must be equals to a 2. So the length of AE simply become equals to a root 3. The length of AC will become equals to a 2. That is not required. It simply mean over here this AC represent the arm length, which is going to be equals to a 2 over here. And since AE become equals to root 3, the term BE will become 7 minus root 3. And since your length of BE and length of CD must be same, the required minimum possible height of the robo from the ground to its shoulder must be equals to a 7 minus root 3. Hence option number 3 is the required answer for this question. The next set basically happens to be on the quant logic, and let's say people who understand TSD and a bit of geometry will find this set to be interesting and also easier. Let us read this particular set. The diagram below represents a road network connecting 5 towns, namely Marine, Lannisport, Winterfell, Old Town and Gulltown. The maximum speed limit along any stretch of road are also shown in the diagram. For example, someone going from Marine to Old Town, the max speed allowed basically happens to be nothing but 100 kmph. Then they are saying that straight road that connects Marine and Gulltown passes through Old Town. So you can see Old Town basically comes in the straight line between Marine and Gulltown. Another straight road running west to east connecting Marine to Winterfell. So going from let's say west to east, Marine to Winterfell passes Lannisport. That means Lannisport also let's say come in the straight line. Once you go from Marine to Winterfell, Lannisport basically will come let's say somewhere in the middle. Further, two straight road, one from Lannisport to Old Town and another from Winterfell to Gulltown are perpendicular to the road. So these are basically perpendicular, joining Marine to Winterfell and run from south to north. So if I want to go upward, I will go towards north. If I want to go towards the right side, I am going basically towards the, one can say, east direction from west to east. So the speed, let's say, which is allowed has been given to you, let's say for each of the segment. And then they also told you something about consider a car traveling at the max permissible speed and always taking the shortest route. It takes 1 hour to go from Old Town to Marine, 2 hours to reach Gulltown from Old Town, 45 minutes to reach Winterfell from Gulltown. And they told for this problem, always consider shortest route in terms of distance. So the car travels at the max speed which is given to you. At the same time, they are given the timeline, how much time let's say one gets over here. So we know distance is equal to speed into time. So for those segments, we can easily find out the required distance. Let us also look at the question which are given to us. So they have given the name of the character, let's say from a series called Game of Thrones. So Lannister drove from Marine to Old Town, then to Old Town to Lannisport, finally from Lannisport to Winterfell, taking the shortest path. He drove at a speed of 10 kmph below the max speed for the stretches he took. So he is not traveling at the same speed. What was its total driving time closest to? And then again, two more, let's say, questions are given to us. So let us look at this approach over here, and what I will do is let's try to find out the distance for each of the segment for which time are known to us. So for example, suppose if I read this particular portion, it takes 1 hour to reach Old Town from Marine. So Old Town from Marine, the time taken basically happens to be a 1 hour. And the speed over here basically is 100 kmph for the car. They have told car is traveling at the maximum permissible speed. So in this particular case, the required distance simply become equals to 100 kilometer from Marine to Old Town. Then if you look at, they have told 2 hours to reach Gulltown from Old Town. So if I look at Old Town to Gulltown, the time taken basically happens to be a 2 hour. And if the speed happens to be 25 kmph, distance covered will be equals to 50 kilometer. This much is known to us at the moment. And finally, they have give you one more information. The distance to go from Winterfell to Gulltown, the time taken happens to be 45 minutes. So Gulltown to Winterfell, the speed is 120 kmph and the time taken is 45 minutes, or we can say 3/4 of an hour. So distance covered over here basically must be 3/4 of 120, giving you 90 kilometer. So this much basically is known to us at this particular point of time. Please note what we were also aware was that these are perpendicular. In other words, these two lines basically are parallel. So now we can take some help of the geometry principles and understand over here. If I look at the bigger right angle triangle, I can see this is 150. This perpendicular side happens to be equals to a 90. So if I use Pythagoras theorem, we can find out the distance between Marine and Winterfell. Understand, people who know about Pythagoras triplet can find this also on the easiest side. If I know about the simplest triplet 3:4:5, because if I look at the number 150, which you can say is 30 into 5, 90 basically is 30 into 3. So distance from Marine to Winterfell must be 30 into 4, giving you a 120. And also understand, since these two lines basically are parallel, the road from Lannisport to Old Town and Winterfell to Gulltown, they are parallel. So I can also take the help of BPT, and we can say that these two distances, Marine to Lannisport and Lannisport to Winterfell, also need to be in the ratio of 100:50, or we can say 2:1. And that basically means if I split the number 120 in the ratio 2:1, those number basically would be nothing but 80 and 40 over here. You could also take variable if you want to. They are going to be 2x and x. So 2x plus x become 3x, which is equals to 120. So x become equals to 40. Hence, Marine to Lannisport becomes 80 and Lannisport to Winterfell part basically become 40 kilometer. And then since both the, let's say, triangle are going to be similar over here, right angle triangles are similar, and since the bigger one follow a 3:4:5, the inner one is also going to follow a 3:4:5. So if I look at the number 100 properly and the number 80, they have 20 in common. So this is 20 into 5. This is 20 into 4. So this part must be 20 into 3, giving you a 60. Also understand, we could have taken the help of, let's say, your BPT, and we could have told, since these two, let's say, sides are in the ratio of 2:1, the right angle triangle, the smaller one and the bigger one will be in the ratio of, let's say, 2:3, because 100 upon 150 will give you a 2/3. Hence this distance, Lannisport to Old Town, must be 2/3 of the number 90, giving you also a 60. So we are able to find out the distance, let's say, for each segment, and now we can easily answer all our questions. We can also find out the time for each of them. If I go with the normal maximum speed, so this will be 2/3 of an hour, which means 40 minutes. For this segment, 40 by 120, because distance upon speed will give you time, 1/3 of an hour giving you 20 minutes. So for each segment, basically the time is known to us, and now we can attack our questions. So if I look at, suppose, the first question, they say Tyrion Lannister drove from Meereen to Old Town. So Meereen to Old Town to Lannisport. So this path, then this path, and Lannisport to Winterfell. This is the path taken by Tyrion Lannister over here. And the speed at which he drove was always 10 kmph lower than the maximum permissible speed in that segment. What does that mean? For this segment, the speed must be 90 kmph. For this, the required speed must be 10 kmph. And for this one, it must be a 110 kmph. And now we can, let's say, look at the segment. Suppose if I say Meereen to Old Town, the time taken basically would be a distance of 100 to be covered at a speed of 90. So 100 by 90 hours. Then if I look at, suppose, Old Town to Lannisport, a distance of, one can say, 60 kilometer to be covered at 10 kmph. This will give you exactly a 6 hours. And finally, Lannisport to, let's say, Winterfell, a distance of, one can say, 40 kilometer to be covered at a speed of 110 kmph. This would be nothing but 4 by 11 of an hour. Now, if you suppose do some basic calculation, this thing 100 by 90 simply become 10 by 9 of an hour, which simply mean 1 by 9 hours. If I do approximation, it will be 1 hour plus 1 by 9 of an hour, which you can say approximately will be another 6 minutes. 6 point something. This part 4 by 11 of an hour, if I, let's say, multiplied it by 60 to convert this in terms of a minute, this will convert to, one can say, nothing but 240 by 11, and that will give you approximately 22 odd minutes. So the question over here says, what was his total driving time? If you add the number 1 hour 6 minute plus 6 hour plus 22 minute, we get 7 hour, and then additional, one can say, 28 odd minute. So if I look at the options carefully, I should choose to mark option number 2 as the answer over here. If I look at the next one, it says Missandei start from Gulltown towards Old Town. So from Gulltown to Old Town, like this. or the shortest path, driving at the maximum permissible speed. So it will take 2 hours for Missandei to go from Girl Town to, let's say, Old Town. And it is given that from Old Town she drives at 10 kmph towards Lannisport. So please note, Old Town to Lannisport, the speed at which Missandei travels was 10 kmph. When Missandei starts from Gulltown, Varys start from at the same time from Lannisport to Old Town along the shortest path, always driving at the maximum permissible speed. So understand, if let's say Varys starts from over here and he is going at 20 kmph, he need to cover 60 km to, let's say, go to Old Town. So time taken basically would be nothing but 3 hours for Varys. But understand, in 2 hours, let's say your Missandei will reach over here. So what I will do is, since we know that Missandei is going to reach Old Town at, let's say, 2 hours, and Vari basically will reach Old Town, let's say, after 3 hours. So definitely, let's say, they are going to meet somewhere between Old Town and Lannisport, and definitely after 2 hours. So find out the situation at 2 hours. So understand, at the end of 2 hours, you will find Missandei over here. And in 2 hours, at the speed of, let's say, 20 kmph, Varys must have covered, one can say, a distance of 40. Varys must have covered a distance of 40 kilometer. So this distance between Missandei and Varys after 2 hours, basically nothing but, one can say, 20 kilometers. And then if I suppose compare the speed of Missandei and Varys, so the speed of Missandei for that, let's say, Old Town to Lannisport was 10 kmph. And Varys has a constant speed of 20 kmph. So if you look at now that the speed is 10 and 20, so the speed ratio simply become 1:2, and that is also going to be nothing but the ratio of the distances covered by Missandei and, let's say, Varys for them to meet. And they also are going to be in the ratio of 1:2. But together they cover 20. So if I split that 20 in the ratio of 1:2, that will become 6.67 and 13.33. So what is going to happen? Missandei basically will cover 6.6. So this is going to be roughly, one can say, 6.67, and Varys basically will cover a 13.33 out of that 20. So if someone, let's say, look at, this is a meeting point, and this meeting point, if you look at, because what they say is, if they don't stop anywhere, at what point are they going to meet? So this point can have a reference with respect to Old Town or with respect to Lannisport. And if I look at this distance, basically happen to be 6.6 kilometers south of Old Town. And one can, this same meeting point, one can say, would be 53.33 kilometers north of Lannisport. So if I look at the option among the, so as I told you, 53.33 kilometer north of Lannisport can be one answer, or one can say 6.6 kilometers south of Old Town. If I look at the options over here carefully, I should choose to mark option number 3 as the answer for this question. If I look at the next one, it says that the capital city, King's Landing, located 40 kilometers south of Gulltown on the road connecting Gulltown to the Winterfell. So somewhere over here you can say you have the place called King's Landing, and that distance basically have been given to you. One can say this is equals to, one can say, a 40 kilometer. This is King's Landing over here, which would mean distance between King's Landing and Winterfell must be equals to a 90 minus 40, giving you a 50. Then they are saying that south of Gulltown on the road connecting Gulltown to Winterfell did not have a straight road connecting Meereen. So we don't have, let's say, a road like this over here. Now they are saying a new expressway is being built to connect these two towns by a straight road. So this, you can say, is the required new expressway. And if I look at this right angle triangle with two perpendicular sides as 50 and 120, so King's Landing to Winterfell was 50, Meereen to Winterfell was a 120. So this new expressway will have a distance of, one can say, 130 kilometers. we can simply use 5, 12, 13, or you can use Pythagoras theorem to find out that distance of Marine to King's Landing linear distance to be equals to 130 kilometers. And then they have told you what should be the maximum speed limit allowed on this expressway so that it cuts down the travel time from Marine to King's Landing from the fastest possible route through the road network shown diagram by 20 minutes. So in this particular case, if you look at suppose from Marine to Winterfell, first of all, the distance was 80 plus 40, which is 120 kilometer, and there was a constant speed allowed was 120 kmph. So this basically would mean that the distance, this part will take 1 hour to travel on a normal basis. Then if I look at suppose this portion, Winterfell to King's Landing, a distance of 50 to be covered at a speed of one can say 120 kmph. So this part, let's say if you look at, if you will come out to be nothing but one can say 1 hour and 25 minutes. 1 hour and 25 minutes. And because they are saying that you have to save this, you have to save a time of 20 minutes. So now you want to cover the distance from Marine to King's Landing via the expressway in 20 minutes less. So if you look at over here 85 minutes, which is 1 hour 25 minutes, subtracting a 20 minute, you want to cover this distance now in only a 65 minutes and a distance of one can say 130 kilometer. So the required speed must be equals to 130 divided by 65 minute translates to one can say 65 by 60 hours. And this thing if you simplify will come out to be a 120 kmph. So the required answer for this particular question would be option number 4. So as I told, this question was interesting and people who like let's say quant and especially TSD and a bit of geometry with Pythagoras theorem and triplet will find this set to be on the easier side and interesting side as well. Next set happens to be interesting one and which goes like this. In an 8-week course, a professor administered a test at the end of each week. Each of the 8 tests were scored out of 4 marks. And a student could only receive a non-negative integer score. What does that mean? The only possible score allowed, one can say, are going to be a 0, 1, 2, 3 or a 4 in those tests. 2 students, Ravi and Sumana, took the 8 tests. So we are going to compare the score of Ravi and Sumana. And then they gave you, in the first test, Ravi and Sumana scored the same marks. From the second to the 8th test, Ravi scored exact same non-zero marks. Sumana scored the same marks as Ravi from the 5th test onwards. Ravi total marks in the first 3 tests was the same as Sumana total mark in the first 2 tests. Also, Sumana marks in the first test, total of the first 2 tests and total marks of the 8 tests are in a geometric progression. And then if I look at the question, which of the following can be true is given to you. Number 2 and number 3 are slightly on the easier side because they gave you the possible score of let's say Ravi in the first test or the second test over here. And the word is can be true. So definitely multiple possibility are going to arise over here. So let us look at the approach, what we can say. So as I told you, because they told it's going to be 8 tests over here and the tests are out of marks of 4 where every score is going to be a non-negative integer. So the only possible score allowed are 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So in the people were Ravi and Sumana, so we will make a simple table, let's say where you can have test 1, test 2 up to test number 8 and the scores of Ravi and let's say Sumana over here, something of this nature. Let's read the first part of the next sentence. In the first test, Ravi and Sumana scored the same marks. How much we don't know. Right now, let's say we take a variable a over here, where the possible value of a can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the moment. Then they say from the second to the 8th test, Ravi scored the exact same non-zero mark. So scores of Ravi in test 2, test 3, test 4 up to test number 8 are same. Let's take some variable b over here. But they have told something about b, it's a non-zero marks. What does that mean? B is not equals to 0 is the condition. Then they told Sumana scored the same marks as Ravi from the 5th test onward. Now since Ravi have scored, let's say, a marks B in test 5, 6, 7, 8, the let's say marks of Sumana is also going to be, let's say, B in test 5, test 6, test 7 and test 8. That much we are able to say at the moment. Then they say one more thing, Ravi total marks in the first 3 tests, which is you can say A plus B, was same as Sumana marks in the first 2 tests. Now please note, since the marks of let's say Ravi and Sumana was same in test number 1, and for this condition to be true, it simply means the marks scored by Sumana in test number 2 will be same as the sum of the marks scored by Ravi in test 2 and test 3 put together. In other words, the marks scored by Sumana in test number 2 must be B plus B, or one can say 2B over here. And then they told one more thing, Sumana marks in the first test, which you can say is A. Total mark in the first 2 tests is going to be A plus 2B. And total mark of the 8 tests are going to be in a geometric progression. Suppose if I take some other variable that Sumana has scored C and D marks in test number 3 and test number 4, then what about this sentence? Sumana scored A mark in test 1. Sumana has scored A plus 2B mark in the first 2 tests put together. So the term A plus 2B, and in total the score basically will be A plus 2B plus C plus D plus B plus B plus B plus B, giving you A plus 6B plus C plus D. So this 3 term A plus 2B, A plus 6B plus C plus D are going to be in geometric progression. And let's say we can create multiple things from this particular portion. So we can create a lot of possibility, or we can just explore the given options also over here. For example, I'm just going to work out with the possibility over here, few of them. Since if you look at the marks scored by Sumana, this marks definitely has to be maximum equals to 4. So one can say 2b less than equals to 4. So b has to be less than equals to 2. So understand, the only possible value of b allowed is going to be a 1 or a possible 2, since b is not equals to 0. So I will take the first possibility, taking suppose b to be equals to 1. So understand, if I take suppose b to be equals to 1, then this particular part will convert to a, comma a plus 2, comma a plus 6 plus a C plus D. These are going to be in GP. Now understand, if I say that the value of A can also be equals to 0, then 0 something something will be in GP, will not going to make sense over here. So definitely the value of A can be a 1, 2, 3 or a 4 potentially. Let's take the scenario. Suppose if I say if A is equals to 1, in that case the term A plus 2 will become, A will become 1, A plus 2 will become a 3. Now, if I look at this 1, 3, something has to be in GP, that something has to be equals to 9. Now, for this to happen, this part A equals to 1 will become nothing but one can say 7 plus C plus D. So, when we have taken B as 1, A as 1, the value of C plus D will come out to be 2. And is this possible? And the answer is yes, this can be very much achieved with the help of, let's say, 2, 0, 1, 1 or a 0, 2, because the scores allowed are going to be among 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then if I take the next scenario for, let's say, A to B equals to 2 under B equals to 1. So I take A as 2, B as 1. The term are going to become, A will become 2. The term A plus 2 will become a 4. So understand 2, 4. In this case, common ratio appears to be a 2. So the third term has to be a 8. Let's see, for this to be true, as I have taken the value of A as 2, this will become 8 plus C plus D. And if 8 plus C plus D is equals to 8, C plus D has to be equal to 0. That will give you only one possibility where both C and D are equal to 0. Then if I take suppose A to be equals to 3, obviously B to be equals to 1. So the term A will become 3. A plus 2 will become 5. Now in this particular case, you will notice the common ratio is 5 by 3, and the third term will not going to come out to be, one can say, as a positive integer. So this case won't happen here. Let's take the possibility of, one can say, A to be equals to 4 now. if I take a to be equals to 4, in that case the term a will become 4, a plus 2 will become equals to, one can say, 6. Now 4, 6, the common ratio is 3 by 2, a third term must be 3 by 2 of 6, giving you a 9. But since we have taken a to be equals to 4, this part becomes 10 plus c plus d, and that means c plus d will become equals to a -1, and this is not happening because the score in any test was a non-negative integer. So this are not going to be possible. So we have taken the situation for b equals to 1. Let us now see what is going to happen for b equals to 2. If I take b to be equals to 2, the term 2b will become 4. So we have a plus 4. This part will become a plus 12 plus c plus d. And again you will take the case of, let's say, a to be equals to 1. So I will take a to be equals to 1 and my term will become 1. A plus 4 will become equals to a 5. And if the common ratio is 5, the third term will be 25. Let's see whether it works or not. Because if I put, let's say, a also to be equals to 1, this will become 13 plus c plus d. Now for this to happen, c plus d has to become a 12, but the max possible sum of c plus d can be equals to 8 when they are going to be 4 plus 4. So not working out for a equals to 1. Let's take a to be equals to 2. If a is 2, then this will become 2. This part will become a 6. And this part will become equals to 18, because 2, 6, 18 will form, one can say, a GP. Now in this particular case, this will become 14 plus c plus d. So c plus d equals to 4 is very much possible with 4, 0, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3 and 0, 4 combinations. Then if I take, suppose, a to be equals to 3, then you will have 3, 7. In that case, your, let's say, third term will not going to come out to be as a proper integer. Finally, suppose if I take the case of a to be equals to 4, b to be equals to 2, then the term a and a plus 4 will become 4, 8. So common ratio is 2. This must be equal to 16. You can check out for a equals to 4. I get 16 plus c plus d equal to 16. So c plus d equal to 0 is very much possible. So as you can see, these are the possible cases where we have taken a and b as 1, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, 2, 2 and 4, 2. And within that, c and d can have further, let's say, possibility. Let us explore the questions now. Which of the following can be true? And Sumana scored 2 marks in the first stage. That means the value of a is equals to 2. As we have seen, is very much possible. So I will again take the scenario. If I take a to be equals to 2 and if I take b to be equals to 1, this will become 2 plus 2, which is 4. Then this part must be equals to 8. So 2 plus 6 plus 0 plus 0. So this is definitely going to be possible for a, 2, b, 1 and c and d to be equals to 0 each. This is very much possible. And if this is possible, I should, let's say option number 1 definitely has to be the answer. No need to, let's say, explore the other options. But yes, we can verify. What they are saying in number 2 is Ravi scored 4 mark in the third test. Ravi 4 mark. If b is 4, the term 2b will become equals to 8. Definitely not possible, because b can only be 1 or 2. B has to be non-zero and b has to be less than equals to 2. B can only be 1 or 2. This never happening. Ravi scored 0 mark in the fifth test. That means the value of b will be 0. So here they are saying b equals to 0. Again a violation. Here we got b equals to 4. A violation. So option 2, option 3 can never happen. Then they are saying Sumana scored 3 marks in the second test. That means the value of 2b is 3. So b become equals to 1.5. But the marks scored in any test has to be an integer. It can't be 1.5. Option 4 can be out. And finally, Sumana scored 4 mark in the 8th test. Again, they are telling you b to be equals to 4. B can be max equals to a 2. So not working out. So clearly, option number 1 is the required answer here. Then if I look at the next one, it says if Ravi scored 4 mark in the first test, so they are talking about the possibility of a to be equals to 4. So I will take, let's say, the case of a 4 and b to be equals to 1. So the term a will become 4. The term a plus 2b will become a 6. So 4 plus 2 will become a 6. And the term a plus 6b plus c plus d will become a 4 plus 6, which is 10, 10 plus C plus D. But as I told you, if I say 4, 6 and something are in GP, that something has to be equals to a 9. But now 10 plus C plus D to be equals to 9 not going to work out, because C plus D become equals to -1. But the least possible sum of C and D has to be equal to 0 when both of them are equal to 0. So this won't work. What about if I take the case of A as 4 and B as 2? So A is 4, B is 2, this part will become 8. 4, 8 and 16 are going to be in a GP. So A as 4, B as 2, so A will become 4, 6B will become 12, plus C plus D will be equal to 16. C plus D equals to 0, means this has to be 0 and 0 over here. And the question over here says, how many marks did Sumana score in the third test? The value of C comes out to be 0, hence option number 5 is the answer for this question. And then finally, if I look at the next one, it says if Ravi scored 1 mark in the second test. So talking about the value of B as 1, so if B is equals to 1, we have seen that multiple cases are possible. This becomes A plus 2, and A plus 6 plus C plus D. So we have seen that if I put the value of A to be equals to 1, then you get 1, 3 and 9. Now this is very much possible because 1 plus 6 plus C plus D as 9 will give you C plus D to be equals to 2. Then if I put suppose A to be equals to 2, then the term will become, this is going to be 2, this will be 4, this will be 8 plus C plus D. So, and this part has to be equals to 8 because 2, 4, 8 are going to form a GP. So C plus D will become equal to 0, very much possible. Then if I put A as 3, so I told you earlier 3, 5, then the third term won't come out to be as a nice integer, won't work. If I put A as 4, this will become 6, this part will become 9, but you will get over here 10 plus C plus D as 9, giving you C plus D as -1, not working out. So what we are able to find out here, the question says what is the maximum possible value of Sumana's total score in all the 8 tests together. So this A plus 6 plus C plus D can have a value of 9 or a possible 8. So these are the two possibility, 8 or 9, and among them the maximum possible number is 9. Option number 5 is the required answer here. The next set happens to be a simple one on the missing figure. It is given that Gadget is a firm that reviews different latest gadgets through a team of 4 reviewers, R1, R2, R3, R4. Recently, the reviewers reviewed 4 different tag gadgets, which is A, B, C, D, on a scale of let's say 1 to 5, all integer values where 1 denote the poor and 5 denote the excellent rating. This review rating were then tabulated. However, due to a technical glitch, some of this rating got deleted. The average rating given by each reviewer and the average rating given to each gadget were earlier communicated to the team management in a separate email and hence can be useful to retrieve the deleted rating. Their available rating along with the average rating are given to you in the following table. So if I understand this, for example, let's say reviewer number 1 have given a rating of 4 to gadget B, have given a rating of 3 to gadget D, and the average of all the let's say rating given by R1 to the 4 gadget A, B, C, D is 4. What does that mean? That simply means total of let's say all the rating let's say given by reviewer number 1 must be equal to 16. 4 into 4 giving you 16 over here. 16, 16, 16, and the total of all the rating given by reviewer 4 must be equals to 17. So 16, 16, 16 and 17. So if I look at suppose what we can do is, for example, if I look at reviewer number 1, total right now which is given to us is 4 plus 3, 7. Total has to be equals to a 9. Total has to be equal to a 16. It means the sum of the rating given to A and C by R1 must be equals to 9. And since the highest possible rating is equals to a 5 over here, the only possible way to achieve this could be with the help of 4, 5 in some order. Then suppose if I look at R2 as well, 3 plus 4 becomes a 7 and total is going to be equal to a 16. That means the sum of the rating given by R2 to gadget B and gadget D must be equals to 9, will again going to be equals to a 5, 4 or a 4, 5 in some order. So we are going to have, let's say, let's number of, let's say, possibility for R1 and R2, and accordingly we can start our problem. So for example, if I take the scenario of R1 giving a rating of, let's say, 4 to gadget A, that means it has to be 5 to gadget C over here. And we can have the other possibility, which you can say R1 gave 5 to A and let's say 4 to C over here. Now, if you look at now, the total rating received by, let's say, gadget C by reviewer 1, 2, 3, 4 must be equal to a 16. And in that particular column right now, only one value is missing. So 5 plus 4 plus 5 becomes right now 14. So the rating given by R3 to C must be equals to a 2. In the next possibility, for example, if I look at over here, 4 plus 4 plus 5 becomes a 13. So this should need to be equals to a 3. So 16, 16, 16, 17, 17, 16, 16, 16. Then at this particular moment, suppose if I look at for R3, right now 2 plus 5 becomes a 7. So sum of the rating received by the gadget A and B from R3 must be equals to a 9. So it will be 4, 5 or 5, 4 in some order. Let's put, let's say, 4, 5 or maybe a 5, 4. Now what is going to happen in this particular case, if I look at this scenario, 4 plus 3 plus 4 will become equals to 11. So this must be equals to a 5. And 4 plus 3 plus 5 will become a 12. This will become equals to a 4 right now. Then if I look at this R4 given to D, 5 plus 4 plus 5 will become equals to 14. This will be equals to a 3. And 4 plus 4 plus 5 will become equals to 13. So this must be equals to a 4. Now the issue would be, if I now look at suppose total rating received by D from the various reviewer, the sum must be equal to a 17. 3 plus 5 plus 3 will become equals to 11. That means it has to receive a rating of 6 from reviewer number 2. But the problem is that no one can get a, let's say, rating of, let's say, more than 5. So this basically would mean that this case can be ruled out. And we are able to find out a unique possibility. So if I look at for rating received by B, total has to be equal to a 16 and only one missing value is there. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 becomes a 12. This has to be 4. This right now becomes 11. This need to be equals to a 5. And this perfectly fits in over here. So we got unique value whenever R was giving a rating of 4 to the gadget A. Coming back to this particular situation right now, for R2, 4 plus 3 is 7 and the sum basically has to be equals to a further 9 for, let's say, R2 giving a rating to B and D. So it has to be two scenario. This is going to be 4, 5, or we can create, let's say, 5, 4 situation. So 5, 4, this will be 5, 4, this will be equals to a 3. So now we can easily find out that, let's say, gadget D received a rating of 13 so far from R1, R2, R3. So it must be a rating of 4, let's say, from R4. In this case, 3 plus 4 plus 5 will become a 12. So it has to be a rating of 5 from R4. 17, 17, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16 and 16. For R3, if you look at now, R4 will give what rating to gadget A? 5 plus 5 plus 4 becomes a 14. This will be 3. 5 plus 3 plus 3 will become equals to 11. So it has to be a 5 R3. 13 plus 3. So 4, 5, 3, 4 also become equal to 16. Perfectly fine. In this case, 13 plus 4. 5 plus 3 plus 4 is 12. This will be 4. 4 plus 3, 7. 7 plus 5 is 12. This will be 4. This also is perfectly fine. So understand, when the person R1 gave a rating of 5, we have got two possible situations. Let's try to attack the questions now. We have got total of 3 possibility. The first question says, what rating given by reviewer 1 to gadget A can help determine the remaining rating uniquely? So we have seen that R1 can give a rating of 4 or 5 to, let's say, gadget A. When R1 gave a rating of 4 to gadget A, we found out only one case. Whenever, let's say, R1 gave a rating of 5 to gadget A, we have got 2 cases. Hence, if you look at over here, my required answer must be option number 5. where R1 gave a rating of 4 to gadget number A, help us finding out a unique rating for all the other scenarios. The next one talks about in how many different ways could reviewer R2 have rated gadget B so that the rating lead to the same average for the gadgets and the reviewer as shown in the table. So as you can see, if I look at R2 has given what rating to gadget B, 4 is one of the possible numbers, or it could be 5. So for 2 rating, which is 4 or 5, entire table basically will match. So there are 2 rating which are going to be 4 or 5 given by R2 to gadget B will lead to the same table. And lastly, they say how many different valid combinations of the missing ratings are possible. So if you look at, we have got 1 case, 2 case and 3 cases. So since 3 cases are possible, so we have 3 valid combinations of the missing rating over here. Hence option number 3 is the answer for this simple question. In this DI set, it is given that the plot below depict and compare the average monthly income in rupee 1000 of males and female in 10 cities in India for the year 2005 and 2015. The 10 cities marked A to J in the records are of different population sizes. For a fair comparison, to adjust for inflation, income of both the periods are scaled to 2025 prices. So we can compare them because both of them are in the same, let's say, year. Each red dot represents the average monthly income of the female in a particular city in a particular year, while each blue dot represents the average monthly income of the male in a particular city in a particular year. So what does that mean? For example, if I look at 2005 and suppose if I look at city A, they have told the red dot indicates over here the average monthly income, one can say, of the females. And that number one can say is 27.5 thousand. And the average monthly income of the male is given by the blue dot, and that number one can say happens to be a 40,000. And then they defined a new term called the gender gap for a city for a particular year is defined as the absolute value of the average monthly income of male minus the average monthly income of the female in that particular year. If I suppose look at for 2005, let's say if I talk about city A, what is the gender gap? 40,000 minus 27.5 thousand, that basically will give you a gender gap of 12.5k or 12500, because the numbers are given to you in terms of thousands. Now everything is known to us. This type of sum I should tackle, let's say, question by question. So these are the 3 questions, and suppose if I look at the first one, in which city did the gender gap in terms of 2005 prices? Please note both the, let's say, graph are in terms of 2025 prices. So it's perfectly fine, no need to, let's say, do any adjustment. Change the least, which has changed the least. So again, change could mean increase, change could also mean a decrease from 2005 to 2006, 15, not 6, in terms of percentage. Now understand what we can do in this particular context. One thing could be for each of the city, for 05 we can write down the average monthly income of the male, female, and we can find out the gender gap. And the same thing, let's say I can do it for the next year as well for each of the 10 cities. Or I could, let's say, look at each of the options over here. The options are D, E, I, C and J. And suppose if I look at the first one, D, and what we can do is we can take those numbers over here as the average monthly income of the female, average monthly income of the male, and we can look for the subtraction. But the good part basically would be, because if I suppose look at from 20 to 22.5, this is going to be 2 equal blocks. So each block one can say will be nothing but 1.25. So there is no need to deal with the actual number. We can just look at each of the block, because each unit or each block basically would mean nothing but a 1.25 or equal gap. So for, let's say, D, if I look at over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it goes from 8 to, so D 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here. So it goes from 8 to 6, and please note they are comparable. So I could have done, let's say, find out the numbers over here, but you can say 8 to 6. This means a change of 2 over 8. and this would mean a 25% change. So it's a very straightforward thing of creating the table and then doing it. It's a simple thing which we can do. What about if I then look for city E? For example, city E 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So from 10 equal blocks, we have gone to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from 10 to 6, it's a drop of 4 over 10, and that simply means a 40% change. So since we wanted the least, option number 2 would be out at the moment. If I look at I now, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it remains 8 to 8. That would simply mean a 0% change. So definitely at this particular moment, if you look at option number 1 is also going to be out. And nothing basically can beat a 0% change, because even if I talk about an increase or a decrease, that number basically would be something other than the number 0. And I should, let's say, mark option number 3 as the answer. But since we are trying to learn and understand this particular question, let's explore option number 4 and 5 as well. So if I look at, let's say, option number 4, which is saying city C, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from 8 to 6, again we can say a drop of 2 over 8, so 25% is a change, not the answer. For J, if I look at, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from 6 it goes to 1, 2, 3, 4. So 6 to 4, it's a drop of 2 over 6. So one can say 1/3, 33.33%. So clearly the lowest number seems to be in option number 3, which is city I. Hence one can say option number 3 is the required answer for this simple question over here. If I look at the next question, it says that which are the following statement about the average monthly income of the 10 city as, let's say, given in the plot is definitely false. Please note, nothing has been told, let's say, about the population of city A, B, C, D up to, let's say, J over here. But what they are saying is we have to evaluate each of the options, and when they say definitely false, it means it can't be true. So if you look at in terms of 2025 prices, which is given, let's say, in the table itself, the average monthly income of the woman in the 10 city combined was less than 22,000 in 2015. So my focus basically has to be on this particular second plot over here. And suppose if I look at the numbers for the female, the lowest number I can see is for city D, and that number basically happens to be 20,000. And all the other numbers you can see, the next smallest number happens to be at 22.5 thousand. So clearly over here that this, if they say definitely false, it's going to be a wrong one, because in this particular case it can be true, because most of them, for 9 cities, you can say the average salary for the females are more than 22.5 thousand. So in this particular case, this statement number 1 or option number 1 definitely false, we cannot say. Hence option number 1 will be out at this stage. Then suppose if I try to look at the second statement, in terms of 25 prices, the average gender gap of the 10 city combined in 2015 was less compared to the average gender gap of the 10 city combined in 2005. This also, let's say, can be easily compared. Suppose if I look at it in terms of the number of blocks, so if I combine, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now from 17.5 till 32.5, it's an increase of 15. So we can say it must be 12, another extra 2. This is 2. This is 20 to 35, again 15 basically would mean 12. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For J, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you look at the total of 2005, 10 plus 14, 24 plus 8, 32, 40, 50, 62, 64, 76. 76 plus 14 will become 90. And for 2015, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then from 22.5 till 32.5, it's an increase of, one can say, 10. So it's going to be 8 here. 22.5 till 37.5 would mean a 6. 20 to 27.5 will again mean a 6. 1, 2, 3, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here we can see a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 22.5, then 10 would mean a 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Clearly, if you look at the summation over here, I can see 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 30. 8 is 1, 2, 3, 24. And 4 coming twice would mean a 8. The sum becomes 62. So it's clear that in 2015, the average gender gap combined, one can say, is definitely lesser in 2015 compared to 2005. This is true. And hence not definitely false can be ruled out. Then suppose if I try to look at the next one, in terms of 25 prices, the average monthly income of the men in the 10 city combined was less than 30,000 in 2005. So we have to focus on 2005 number, and you can see for each city, the lowest one can say is equals to a 30,000, and for every other city, the average monthly income of the males are, let's say, more than 30,000. So definitely, if I know that it's a concept of averages, together if I count all the 10 cities put together, the average monthly income of the male definitely has to be more than 30,000. But here they are saying it is going to be less than 30,000. This is going to be definitely false. And hence one can choose to mark option number 3 over here. So there is no need to explore option number 4 and 5 in this particular question now. In the next one, it is given that rupee 125 was worth rupee 60 in 2015 and let's say 25 in rupee in 2005. What does that mean in terms of, let's say, scaled version? This basically would be 25% of what has been given. In 2015, the scaling basically has to be of, one can say, a 0.6 over here, because it is going to be 60% of the value in 2025. For 0.5, the value basically is going to be 25% of what it is in terms of 2025. Based on the given plot, which of the following statement about the unscaled income, which is the income before scaling to 25 prices, cannot be determined, cannot be correct over here? So again, we are looking for something which has to be definitely false. And they told you the unscaled gender gap reduced in all the 10 cities from 5 to 15. So what we can look in this particular case, we want to look at a scenario where it is going to be an increase. For example, if I look at city A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's say 10 blocks are there, which you can say it is 10 into 1.25, so a gap of 12.5 or 12,500. But again, I would deal in terms of blocks only. So 10 into 25% of that will give you a 2.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So 6 into a 0.6 will give you a 3.6. So clearly one can say it has increased in city A over here. But they told you it's going to reduce in all 10 cities, and that basically is a false statement, and hence the answer. One can also check over here, for example, this is 2. 2 into 0.25 is going to be a 0.5. And this city G, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 into 0.6 will be equals to a 2.4. But definitely it is increasing for city A, city G over here. So if I have a statement like this, the unscaled gender gap reduced in all 10 cities from 0.5 to 0.15, that's a definitely false statement. And that means option number 1 is the required answer for this particular question. Now just to, let's say, check one more options over here. If I look at, suppose, average unscaled income of men in city E increased by 140% from 5 to 15. Understand, if I look at the figure of, let's say, 15 for city E, this is 32.5 thousand, and a scale factor, if I look at, will be 0.6. What about 0.5 value? This number again is same, 32,500, and the scale factor basically is of 0.25. So because if you look at in, let's say, with respect to inflated price, this number is same, this is going to be out. If I look at over here multiplied by 100, it becomes 60 over 25. That is the ratio. If I look at 5 is going to be 12 by 5. So if something becomes 12 by 5, it simply means it's an increase of 7 over 5, which is 1.4 or 140%. So clearly statement number 2 happens to be true and not the answer. So likewise we can explore the option number 3, 4, 5, but since option number 1 matches, there is no need to check option number 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. Hence option number 1 is the answer for this sum.